want to thank the league for what you are doing throughout not only the borough but throughout the city. And this is a very important stamp and what it represents. And as we celebrated this unveiling of the stamp at Brooklyn Borough Hall, I would say to you what I said then. The goal now, we have achieved the accomplishment of placing Congresswoman Chisholm's stamp on a letter. Now we must accomplish the goal of having her place the stamp of approval on our lives. Who and what we will become, not only as Brooklynites, but as human beings. Becoming the first is a joy and pleasure that it brings. I enjoy the fact of becoming the first African American to be Brooklyn Borough President. I enjoy the fact that Ken Thompson is the first African American district attorney in the county of Kings. I enjoy the fact that Letitia James is the first public advocate woman of color. All of those things come from the tree of Shirley Chisholm. Right. All of those things of believing that you could go beyond the geographical boundaries of your neighborhood and you could accomplish things not only on the citywide but borough-wide level is something that Congresswoman Chisholm embodied. But there's still a question mark that lingers over the borough and the city. What type of city are we going to become? Because if Congresswoman Chisholm was here today, she would find herself being threatened by the cost of rent and the countless number of seniors who woke up to gunshots and not alarm clocks but remained in the Brooklyn is now being pushed out. If Congresswoman Chisholm was here today, she would be disappointed to see that some of the public policies and programs around food stamps and health care are being attacked in a very mean and brutal way. People that hide behind the name of Tea Party but being the bearer of bad news on so many programs that assist people to move forward. If she was alive today, she would look at the fact that for the last 12 years under the draconian police practices of Bloomberg and Kelly, countless number of innocent people spent their entire youthful years being stopped, frisked, and mistreated, treated like second-class citizens in a first-class country. And if she was alive today, she would see that the increase in hate crimes, people treating people in an unfair and undignified manner merely because of their sexual preference, their ethnicity, or where they decide they want to live. If she was here with us today, she would be dismayed to see that people who wear hijabs or decide to go to a mosque will have to worry about a police officer infiltrating their house of worship. Don't allow them to acknowledge and appreciate the most basic principle and belief of this country, the right to assemble and the right to freedom of practicing the religion of your choice. Those are the things that she would be facing. And so we have an obligation to take the question mark that would Congressman Chisholm put her stamp of approval on our lives? We have to straighten that question mark to an exclamation point and say, yes, she will. Because we have to now dig deep and become the real agents of change. We must look across this borough that I say often where 47% of Brooklynites speak a language other than English at home. That is an amazing number. I believe it's more than 47%, just half the people who had to poll and deal with the census takers didn't open the door because they thought it was the bill collector. I think if you do a real analysis, this is a borough that is majority minority of diversity in the city and in the entire state. We must now start the process in the spirit of Shirley Chisholm to not be afraid of that diversity, but to embody that diversity and celebrate that diversity. And that's why I say over and over again, one Brooklyn. The goal is not to be in first place. Bernie Madoff was in first place. The goal is to unify this borough and create what I call the Shirley Chisholm common denominator. You know, I learned from my 18-year-old son, who's now in American University, I learned that as I helped him with his mathematical equation, if you have a fraction with the same common denominator, you can add things together. It becomes challenging and complex when the denominators are not the same. If we identify the denominators that impact all of our lives and don't focus on on top of the fraction, we can move forward. What am I saying? All of us want to have a borough while children have access to quality education. The conversation is not charter school or public school, it's all of our children. The conversation is about educating well-rounded children that they can be the best that the globe has to offer. That's what the goal is. On top of the fraction is where the education takes place. And that's what too much energy is focusing on. Let's go below the fraction where the common denominator lies that say if we educate our children, no matter what school building they're in, it comes out to equal quality education and well-rounded children. The top of the denominator talks about what house of worship you're in. The bottom of the denominator, what we need to add together is no matter what house of worship you're in, no matter if it's a synagogue, a Baptist temple, a Buddhist temple, or a mosque, if we allow each other to talk about worshiping to build our community and our city in a very dignified fashion, it doesn't matter what structure you're sitting in, it matters what structure's inside your heart to make sure that you become a better human being. The bottom of the denominator is public safety. Safe streets, freedom from intrusion. Public safety means not only are you afraid of the bad guy wearing blue jeans, but you should not be afraid of the bad cop wearing a blue uniform. In a civilized society, no innocent child should ever be approached by a person with a gun. It doesn't matter if they're wearing a blue police uniform or blue dungarees. It should not happen. And we embodied the energy that stated that innocent and child of color was an oxymoron in this city. We treated these first-class children like second-class children in this society, and that's unacceptable. The common denominator is to protect all of our children, and that's the focus point, not based on what neighborhood they come from or what is their economic value, but we must treat them with the dignity that they deserve. And that's the common denominator that we must focus on. So in the spirit of Shirley Chisholm, it's about energizing each other to start shifting our gear and our mindset, to start focusing on those things that we have in common, and move away from those things that are just petty differences. How do we build a greater and better Brooklyn? How do we make sure that, as Shirley Chisholm has always fought for, how do we ensure that the prosperity of this brand we call Brooklyn turn into prosperity for all Brooklynites? Just the popularity cannot stay on the corner of Atlantic and Flatbush Avenue where Barbra Streisand comes and sings and Jay-Z rap and Beyonce struts her stuff. It has to be more than that. This borough must become more than that. And you know, I tell people all the time, I am the broccoli borough president. It's not going to taste good, but it's going to be healthy what I'm going to do for you. There's going to be days that you're going to say that there's something uncomfortable about him. There's something that just makes me feel uncomfortable. Well, we've been too comfortable. These are not jovial times when 24% of this borough is living below the poverty line and 50% is one paycheck away from poverty. Double-digit unemployment in certain communities. People believing that they have to give up and not get up. I have an awesome responsibility as borough president. I got to send a new message, a new clarion call We cannot continue to move in just a state of complacency. That's not what Shirley Chisholm was all about. And when you look at figures like Shirley Chisholm and Nelson Mandela and Dr. King, they've transformed the human spirit and become being-like. I want to be Chisholm-like. It's not the human being I'm focusing on. It's the spirit and energy of Shirley Chisholm, doing the impossible, believing that we can. And so when a young child goes into a school that bears the name of Shirley Chisholm, and she say, who is Shirley Chisholm? It's saying to all of us, we have to go back to the simple conversations and not allow people just to robotically go through life, but have a meaningful interaction in how we interact with each other. Because just as that child can't tell you who Shirley Chisholm is, we often can't tell you who's in our midst, who's in pain. We look at people every day and say, good morning, how are you? And they say, I'm hurting. And we say, have a nice day. Instead of stopping and looking at each other, we have tweeted and blogged ourselves out of human interaction. There is no greater interaction we can have that's Shirley Chisholm-like than to start human engagement and talk to each other again. Have conversations again. Being simple again. Taking the phone away from our children, allowing them to sit down and have FaceTime with each other. Don't allow them to court each other over tweeting. Afraid to engage. Everything to say away from each other, but not in each other's same presence. And it all sounds complicated what we have to do, but it's very simple. Basic interactions. And that was what Shirley Chisholm was about. Being proud. Saying she was unbossed and unbored. Talk about the quality of education. Being dignified in her presence. Ensuring the proper manner and how a child moves forward. Tell children all the time, on this level where we play, using the wrong fork to eat your salad is the difference between you getting a deal or not.
That's right.
Shaking the hand wrong. And Shirley Chisholm focused on those little things. She understood if we wanted our children and young people to play on the big leagues, they have to change their posture and present themselves as big league players. So what does that mean? That means you can't put a tattoo on your neck with two cherries saying, lick me. That means you can't write Thug for Life on your skin. That means you can't do things that is going to relegate you to the boiler room if you want to sit in a boardroom. That means having the hard conversations. Told Jordan the other day, my 18-year-old, I'm a retrospective parent. You appreciate me later. You don't appreciate me now. You are supposed to say, Dad, I don't like you. You're supposed to look later and say, now I know what you're talking about. Our children can't say that because we're not talking about anything. We're going along to get along. We want to be their buddy. I don't want to be your buddy. You have enough buddies. And this is the spirit of Shirley Chisholm. People talk about Congress being the first African American. They talk about being the first woman of color, a woman to run a serious campaign. They talk about all those grand things she used to do. But look between the lines and see the everyday interaction that she used to have with young people. And she made them be tall and be presentable. You would not sag around Shirley Chisholm. It wouldn't happen. Clean or dirty drawers, you'll pull your pants up. That's the energy of Shirley Chisholm. That's the energy I want to bring back to the borough. Good, old-fashioned, simple, basic interaction. That's what we need. And so, I'm well aware that many of you are going through separation anxiety because Marty Markowitz is no longer borough president. I'm well aware. But let me tell you something. Eric Adams is the borough president now. We're going to do some good things. And I don't have to follow and fill anyone's shoes because I got a nice, clean pair of my own. And we're going to walk the right walk. And we're going to do the right things in this borough. And yes, I'm going to give you a concert, but also I'm going to healthcare providers on the field. I'm going to have resume writers. I'm going to have job training. I'm going to ensure that every beat that's sung and danced and played, that you also have life skills that's there. Yes, I'm going to give you some of those playful and joyful things. But you would not have a meeting or discussion in Borough Hall or anywhere around me that you're not going to walk away with something that's going to improve your life. I must move the needle forward. I don't have the luxury of just giving you simple and cosmetic things in this borough. We're going to do things that are substantive in nature. You're going to have something at the conclusion of my 4 years and 8 years, God willing, as the borough president, that real things will be done in this borough in a very real way. Not because Eric said it's right, but because Shirley Chisholm said it right. And I don't want her stamp of approval just on a letter. I want on a life that I live from cop to senator to borough president. Being the first black means nothing if you don't do something of quality to the people of this borough. Thank you very much. Thank you, Shirley Chisholm.